be about increasing equity and access to outdoor recreation. So we have two virtual presenters up first, and then we'll have a third one in person. And we're going to start with Veronica Ko, a Warfighter ambassador from MoveUnited. So Veronica, go ahead.
Hey. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Veronica Ko, and I'm honored to be presenting MoveUnited, an organization that has been transforming adaptive sports and outdoor recreations for decades. I wanted to be there in person today, but my work schedule shifted, and I'm still stuck in DC at the moment. And also, I have not been able to follow along today's agenda, so kind of bear with me if I'm repeating things you have heard or discussed already today throughout your caucus. As we talk about the trails and outdoor space, my goal today is to show you how national efforts through policy and partnership and innovations are breaking down barriers so that everyone, regardless of their physical ability or age, can experience the outdoor fully and safely. Next, please. Just a little about myself. I'm a retired Army officer working in the defense foreign policy industry and as a part-time flight instructor when time permits in Olympic Peninsula area. In 2017, I had a motorcycle accident and lost my left leg. During my recovery, I found a purpose in volunteering with the organizations like MoveUnited and other nonprofit organizations helping adaptive community experience the outdoor fully. Being an amputee myself has been had a first-hand insight into power of accessible outdoor spaces and how that can heal and empower and connect people. So today's talk is about more than just building more trails. It's about removing barriers, physical, informational, and cultural, so that everyone can confidently enjoy the outdoor fully. Next, please. The MoveUnited has a bold vision of 2028 that 90% of Americans should live within 50 miles of a MoveUnited member program or a similar support network. That this goal actually matters because distance is often one of the biggest barriers. It is nearest a program is hours away, participations become nearly impossible. But when we create a local hubs for adaptive sports and outdoor recreations, we give veterans, kids, and adults with a disability access to health, belonging, and adventure close to home. And the trails are one of the most affordable ways to make this vision a reality. Next. So MoveUnited has a rich history. Our work began back in 1956. Today, MoveUnited include 245 member organizations across 45 states, supporting more than 70 adaptive sports, and this national infrastructure is what makes the trail access work possible. Next, please. Let's be clear, trail access isn't just about whether a trail exists. It's about whether people can use it safely and independently. The federal laws like a architectural barrier laws and Rehabilitation Act and American Disabilities Act provide strong legal foundation for accessibility, and these laws protect the right for recreation without discrimination and guided design for public space, yet many outdoor areas still fall short, whether it's poor design, lack of maintenance, or missing information that makes it hard for someone with a disability or mobility challenges to know what's actually possible. And that's where the new legislature, like a Explore Act of 2025, steps in, helping close these gaps and push accessibility towards the national scale. Next. The Explore Act of 2025, it actually requires a federal agencies to review and improve recreation facilities, to follow the accessibility law and plan new opportunity with the inclusive in mind. Importantly, it makes sure that the people with the disabilities are considered from the beginning, not as an afterthought. It actually creates a framework where the community organizations like MoveUnited can partner with the public land managers to bring tangible local impact. Next, please. So why do trail matter so much? It's because they are one of the most equitable form of recreation, right? Lower cost, close to home, and something people can enjoy for a lifetime. So at MoveUnited, we work directly with parks and land agencies we host adaptive programs and events that welcome new users to outdoors, provide access to adaptive equipment, and train them how to use it, consult and advocate with the land managers and inclusion in design, and educate staff and volunteers to better serve all users. And we also conduct detailed trail assessments so that people can know what to expect prior to being there. So in Washington, just this August, MoveUnited partnered with the engineering firm called Beneficial Design, also King County and the Mount Rainier National Park to assess the trails in Cougar Mountain Regional Wildland Park, Taylor Mountain, and several areas in Mount Rainier National Park. Volunteers and the Beneficial Design trail assessor walked over 100 miles of trails. And now Beneficial Design is developing a trail accessibility information called TAI, which is providing the users with the clear, reliable details about the trails before they set out to actually walk out on the trail. Next, please. So let's talk about the trail accessibility information. One of the biggest barriers isn't the terrain, it's the lack of accurate and objective information. Because when you have a mobility challenge, you can't just slip on your shoes and head out for a walk. You have to mentally and physically prepare yourself. You have to plan your route, check your equipment, make sure that the trail is something that you can safely navigate with your prosthetic or mobility supporting devices. So without good information, that preparation can be very stressful and most of the time discouraging. So people end up not going. So traditional trail rating, like a easy or moderate, are very subjective. For someone using a wheelchair or adaptive bike, those labels don't tell the whole stories. So that's why the trail accessibility information, otherwise known as the TAI, matters so much. It provides the really reliable, detailed data so that people can plan with the confidence and improving both safety and overall outdoor experience. Next. TAI looks at the details that really matters. It measures things like a length, grade or slope, width, cross slopes, surface type, and the obstructions and barriers of sort. Next, please. Let me just show you the example of TAI. So this is what the TAI looks like. And this Pacific Trail is just north of Lake Tahoe Rim Trail system. So by publishing this kind of objective data, we empower independence. Again, accurate information doesn't just help people with the disability, it benefits seniors who's walking with the walker, families with the strollers, and even avid hikers who wants to know exactly what they're heading into. So let's kind of zoom in. If you go to the next slide. It shares the key facts like a typical and a maximum grades, cross slope, trail width, surface type, firmness, and stability, and just providing the knowledge so that before you actually get onto trail, you can figure out whether this is a trail that you can actually walk, and then you can actually make it down safely and choosing the right adventure for themselves. Next, please. So we use the specialized tools to collect this data efficiently, like a high efficiency trail assessment process. It's called HETAP device, and the universal trail assessment process, UTAP, and the mobility app. And we also use LiDAR, the light detection and the ranging scanning device, which uses a laser pulses to map terrain with the precision. MoveUnited partner with the innovators like a Beneficial Design, which was founded by the climber who was paralyzed during the climbing accident at the Air Force Academy, when he went on to invent the innovative tools like a HETAP and UTAP that makes a trail assessment fast and accurate and consistent. By working with the companies like Beneficial Design, MoveUnited train local teams to use these tools so the data is accurate and standardized. And that means no more vague, easy, modern labels, just clear, actionable insight for users and for the land managers, for the information they can use to plan upgrades, fix trouble spots, or design better, more inclusive trails for all. Next, please. And we'll just kind of go through the systems, but the adaptive equipment really is essential for the trail access for people with a disability. This is the off-road wheelchair. Next. And then this is a off-road wheelchair with the power assist for more uneven path with the people with the strength issues. Next. Hand cycle, which is capable of handling gravel or dirt road. Next. Hand dolly wheel system, capable of handling rough terrain for people who are paralyzed, who need really help with others to get to the outdoors. Next. The trek chairs that specialize in trekking poles and harness system for rugged and sandy area. And next. And then another game changer is the trek vehicle. We call it trek chairs. It's for mud, snow, sand, and rugged terrains. And that will help people get out there when they can't really wheel themselves around. So this trek wheelchair, people can actually stand on it if they want to, and it actually had to have a certain standard of the trail so they can actually get this system out there. Next, please. So all these devices that I've actually shared with you can turn the impossible into possible for people with the physical disability, opening up places that were once completely out of reach, yet they get to go out there and enjoy themselves with the help of these devices. But the cost and then access remain the biggest challenge. The many people who could benefit really simply cannot afford one of these devices and don't have a local places to try or borrow one. Despite the progress we have made, there are still big needs ahead, like education, training park staff and volunteers and inclusion, assessing more trails and developing more trail accessibility information so that users know what to expect prior to getting onto the trail, expanding lending libraries and funding to make adaptive equipment or gears affordable, and developing a clear rules around the e-assist device and other mobility aids, and then better accessible parking, restrooms or transportation links, and more adaptive events to build confidence in community. So these are opportunities where you as an individual and organizations or community leaders can collaborate to come up with the funds and advocate to make the outdoors truly inclusive. Next, please. So one of the organizations MoveUnited work with is Catalyst Sports. It's the inspiring example of the adaptive outdoor recreations provider with the 14 locations across Southeast United States. They build strong programs for adaptive climbing, biking, hiking, and they train volunteers to support and welcome new participants. And here in Seattle, I'm sure most of you know, the Outdoors for All foundations have been transforming lives since 1976, improving quality of life for people with a disability through outdoor recreations. So partnerships like these extend MoveUnited's reach by collaborating with the local leaders and building regional hubs for expertise. MoveUnited serve more people, share best practices, and build the adaptive outdoor recreation movement nationwide. Next. So lastly, if you are ready to help, you may consider kind of partnering with the MoveUnited and outdoor advocacy group and bring inclusive outdoor programs to your community. Of course, advocating for objective trail data and accessibility infrastructure, and then support policy effort like the Explore Act. Together, we can advance our vision of 2028, ensuring that every Americans have access to inclusive, adaptive recreation close to home, and that every trail truly welcomes everyone. And next, please. So this, and I've kind of went through really quickly. So this is a information on Julia Ray. She is the director of programs for MoveUnited, and the contact information has been attached. And if you have any, if you have a concern or questions about the MoveUnited's, the effort on the trail accessibility and trail assessment, you can contact her or myself, and then we'll be more than happy to share whatever the information that you might require. And pending your questions, that's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Veronica. I think we have time for maybe just one question. So if anyone in the audience, okay, I'll come bring the mic back.
Thanks so much. As a trails planner who sometimes works on trails where we're looking to integrate portions of trails that are more accessible to people, is the best way to go about kind of assessing whether a trail would fall under a more accessible trail to use those TIA guidelines? Just want to make sure that what we're designing and building is actually going to be more accessible to folks. Yeah, just wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
So, I mean, what I would like to recommend is that we work with in August, we work with the King County, to assess the trail. So what we can actually do, and as we do with the national park at this time, we have a equipment called heat tap and UTAP I talked about earlier. It's a high efficiency trail accessible process. It's a little stroller that has a GPS device, and it actually measures inclination, the degradation grades, and a bunch of the things that they need in order for them to assess the trail to see if it's accessible or not, how wide it is, how slopey it is, so that we can actually figure out that if it is possible for a different equipment to actually get on, and so that we can actually develop the TAI and we publish it. So goal of the national park is that have a percentage of a different trails have a posted the TAI and the trailhead as well as online, so that the participant can decide whether they can actually get on that trail or not. So just like the King County have done for those different areas of the Cougar Mountain area and different, I think there's one more area, the people can actually reach out to MoveUnited, or the actually here in Washington State, the outdoors for all has a heat tap equipment, and I use that actually equipment to assess a bunch of trails in the Olympic National Park area, so that you can actually borrow it. We can actually train you so that you can use those trails to assess it and then turn that into TAI and then make the information available for your community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Veronica. We are going to shift gears now. Our next presenter will be Janette Chien, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director from Washington State Parks, who will also be calling in via Zoom.
Hi everyone, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and you have slides to share, correct?
Yes. I think I found, can you all see these slides? Yes, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Also, I can turn my camera off too if it makes the slideshow really small.
I think you're good.
Okay, all right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janette Chien. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of DEI, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Washington State Parks. Thank you for the space to share during this Trails Caucus. I've been in my role for about 3 years. The Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Office at State Parks is relatively new. This doesn't necessarily mean that DEI work wasn't happening across the agency with our various programs and partnerships and folks in the field, but it's our first effort as an agency to really elevate the work to an agency-wide and leadership level, which is really important as it demonstrates our agency's commitment and priorities around equity, inclusion, and access. And this is just for context. We had our first DEI director in 2021. It was Dr. John Scott. And in 2022, the DEI office grew to 2 full-time staff with administrative support. Oh. The slides are advancing, right? Sorry.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, it's just been like a weird tech day. So in terms of how I'll use this time, I always like to start with stories, why I'm here, why this work matters, and how my lived experience has shaped the way that I approach equity work at state parks. And then I'll talk a little bit about what community means to me, how communities have supported equity work, and some of the ways that state parks, as a public serving agency, is really seeking to engage with communities in our programs, processes, and decisions that impact them. And lastly, I'll share some snapshots of equity initiatives that we've been working on. And then lastly, I'll share some hopes for the future. So starting with stories, on the left, that's me as a child in the sunglasses, wearing an Ariel the Mermaid shirt. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm a first generation Asian American, Chinese, identify as an immigrant culture. My family came to the US in the 80s after the US changed its border policies. So specifically the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1965, which allowed for skilled workers and family members to enter the country and eliminated the old quota system that gave preference to Western Europeans. My family parents grew up in Shanghai and they were school age during the Cultural Revolution. And so they were part of the population of young people living in cities who were sent to the rural countryside in order to be re-educated in labor camps. And so whenever I think about the outdoors, I think about the history that gets carried through generations and that movement across that global movement that's carried through generations. Growing up, my father would take road trips to national parks, and I have these old pictures of us posing next to park signs, usually right at the entrance or the visitor center. I don't know how much hiking we did. And only later in life did I learn that there's a real rich history of Asian American families doing these same road trips across the United States, visiting parks. My main memories of being outdoors are multi-generational spaces. I remember seeing families, kids, lots of seniors doing exercise, either doing Tai Chi or dance. And then I also remember a lot of food and cultural celebrations in public parks. And so for me, the outdoors was tied to a sense of community and to health and well-being, and also this idea that these public spaces are free and they're designed for us to enjoy in a way that feels good to us and our communities. And then there were also stories and messages that I heard growing up about the great outdoors, or what we might call outdoor recreation, what it looks like, who does it, what types of bodies, what ages and abilities do it, what racial groups, what socioeconomic groups, and what genders do these activities. Even things like the clothes they wear or the equipment they have as they do their hiking, climbing, camping, biking, fishing, hunting, etc. And I always struggled to see myself in these stories. And I'm not just thinking about recreation activities, but also this overarching narrative of this great outdoors and the idea of national parks or state parks as part of this shared American identity, or what it means to be a Washingtonian. These ideas of belonging actually bring so many questions and gaps. If the foundation of public parks and access to the outdoors is a part of what it means to be American, then what does it mean when so many communities, especially marginalized communities, don't have access to these spaces? And not just physical access, but also just being able to be represented in these spaces, getting to be a part of those stories of being outdoors and connecting with nature. And so, one of the questions that I like to ask when doing equity work is, when was a time when you felt a sense of community in the outdoors? And what did that look like? So starting from the bottom left, I was introduced to rock climbing by my partner in my 20s. And the first time I went climbing without him was on a Chicks with Picks crack climbing trip out in Moab, Utah. And it was all women climbers. And my first experience being in a gender affinity climbing space. And that felt super empowering. But what was really sad for me is that I was the only woman of color in that group. And over the years, it's taken a lot of effort and intention to seek out spaces in which there are more people of color just being in community in the outdoors. On the bottom right, folks from WTA may recognize this. This is a snapshot from the BIPOC Partner Hike with the Emerging Leaders Program. The Emerging Leaders Program is a professional development program for young BIPOC professionals looking to enter the outdoor industry or natural resources. And state parks collaborated with WTA to provide a series of professional development days for this cohort and introduce them to career opportunities at state parks. I brought my baby on this trip. She's in a backpack carrier on the top left. She's kind of cut off. On the top left, this is a photo from the Yu Mian Cultural Festival at Saltwater State Park. This is a festival hosted by our Folk and Traditional Arts program. It is part picnic, part family reunion, part cultural performance with lots of food vendors and traditional arts groups. This was a moment where I felt a really strong sense of community in the park. And I brought my 2-year-old to this festival, and she had the best time. That's her on the top right at Saltwater, discovering a puddle for the first time. And she submerged herself in that puddle. So that was a real joyful moment for me. So I share this to say that finding community for me in the outdoors means finding people who look like me in outdoor spaces. And it also means reframing what outdoors and outdoor recreation looks like. And for all of these activities to feel meaningful and valued, and that you don't need to have the right gear or be physically fit enough or have knowledge of a specific kind of etiquette in order to show up and feel connected to the community and to the land. So, kind of transitioning to think about community as a state agency, What does collaboration look like as state parks? And here are some sort of guiding principles that support our approach to this. First of all, state parks is a public serving agency, and so collaboration with communities is absolutely vital to achieve our goals. We want to engage communities in decisions and processes that are impacting them. That's a huge part of what equity means. And it helps us to do our job better. So everything from elevating community voice, building those relationships to inform our processes, all of that helps to operationalize equity at parks. We have a PAIR team, Pro Equity Anti-Racism team. This team has been meeting for the past 2.5 years every month. The PAIR team is connected to an executive order, 2204, which required state agencies across Washington to form PAIR teams and develop PAIR plans. It is a working group composed of community members and staff across the agency who are all dedicated to advancing equity and community engagement at the agency. And so these members contribute their perspective, their lived experience, and their expertise, and they provide feedback, equity feedback on all of our projects and processes. And so over the past 2 years, we have brought teams from every single division, leaders from every single division to the PAIR team. And they've been able to get feedback. They've been able to work with this team to identify gaps, and the team contributes their tools, resources, and community-rooted expertise. And just a small caveat here, language is always evolving, and the context that we're in is always evolving. And so pro-equity anti-racism is language that will be changing. The Office of Equity is shifting the language of PAIR to the language of impact. But I'm calling it PAIR team for now, just for clarity, because we've been meeting for 2 years and I don't want to confuse folks. So one of the efforts of the PAIR team has been to form a committee called the Welcoming Park System Committee. And so the charge of this committee is to envision a state park system that welcomes, connects, celebrates, and supports the diverse communities of Washington. And one thing connected to this charge is the question of how do we actually know that we're welcoming? We might think that we're welcoming, we might say that we are, but how do we know that we are? And to whom are we welcoming to? And so to answer this question, it requires us to understand the many barriers to outdoor access before even working to address them. It requires us to consider how different groups may actually have vastly different experiences in state parks, including experiences with law enforcement or interaction with government systems. And this also requires us to be in thoughtful collaboration with underrepresented groups and underserved groups. And all of that in service of developing community-driven solutions. And so some of the objectives for this committee include for us to look at what are we doing around community engagement? Sometimes this is called different things. Sometimes it's called public input process or customer service or supporting our campers and visitors. And so we really want to think about how are we engaging with the public and how are we engaging in building relationships with different communities around Washington. Another objective is to really articulate what is our approach to community engagement. And that includes thinking about what are our best practices around cultural competency, around being welcoming, around creating a sense of belonging, around things like public safety and what that means to groups. We also want to develop strategies to better serve underrepresented communities across the state. And then lastly, this group also comes together to provide really tangible feedback on current programs in place around community engagement, as well as our customer-facing materials. And another context that I'd like to share is that at parks, we don't have a centralized home for community engagement. We don't have a community engagement team. And so this is an area that really needs that foundational support. And it needs that capacity to build those relationships that take a long time. It takes time and energy to build that trust, reciprocity, and it also requires a lot of adaptability and an acknowledgement that many communities feel a strong sense of distrust with their government. So one of the projects that we worked on was for the welcoming park system to give feedback on our customer information boards. So these boards are often the first point of contact for any park visitor when they come to a park. It is a board that orients them. It is the information that people receive when there's no park staff available. And so with this group, we were able to look at the different posters that we put on this board and really ask the group, which has various community members, what feels welcoming about this? What feels not so welcoming? And how well are we communicating key information that will support your experience, both getting to the trail, being on trail, and then leaving the park so that you want to come back for another experience. Another example of a community engagement program that Pear Team has shaped and the committee is supporting on an ongoing basis is our Everyone Outdoors program. So Everyone Outdoors program is a collaboration with DNR and DFW. It's a program that provides free Discover passes to Washington-based organizations and groups that serve communities who face barriers to outdoor access. This launched in March of 2024, and we have been piloting it for the past 15 months, and we actually had to close applications early because we ran out of passes. So I want to give you a quick snapshot of some of the data. So over 15 months, 278 organizations applied, requesting more than 10,000 passes. And this was about 8 more times than what was available. And in the application process, we asked folks to identify what are the barriers that you experience. And 86% indicated financial, 66% named a lack of comfort, experience, or education in outdoor recreation, and 64% named a lack of community representation in the outdoors. In terms of who this program was able to reach, we awarded 1,250 passes to 104 organizations. And out of these organizations, 95% served BIPOC communities, 77% individuals with disabilities, 76% served multilingual communities, 73% served youth under 18, and we had a lot of outdoor ed programs, which was really exciting, and 33% served LGBTQ plus communities. And of course, we always come back to stories. I wanted to share just um, a few stories we received back from Everyone Outdoors recipients. So the first one names how for folks in their programs, for many of the youth, it was their first experience engaging in the outdoors, and that many of them were excited to return on their own to showcase their newfound love for the outdoors. And I think this is one of the things that's really exciting about this program is that we are distributing annual passes. And so it's giving folks the incentive to create that lifelong connection, or at least an annual connection with their public lands. The second quote really talks about how the pass supports families to come together and enjoy the space. And then we also, the last quote I'm including because we really wanted it to be a really simple application process where it didn't feel like they had to do lots of reporting and feel like they had to justify what activities were valid to use the pass for. We really were focusing on just addressing those barriers, just addressing just one of those barriers, which is the financial piece of the Discover Pass. And I think this is going to be even more potent with the Discover Pass increase that went into effect yesterday. And so one of our goals with this program is to think about how do we both connect with the groups that have received passes or applied for passes, and how do we increase our impact with the limited budget that we have. And then lastly, we can't talk about equity and access without talking about the youth. So State Parks, we oversee No Child Left Inside grant program, and it is administered by our wonderful and committed partners at RCO. So shout out to RCO. NCLI provides opportunities for underserved, underrepresented, and historically excluded youth across the state. This past biennium, we received a record number of applications. We received 259 applications requesting over $21 million in funding. The Tier 2 and Tier 3 applications doubled from the last application cycle. And these requests came from nonprofits, schools, community organizations, tribes who are all doing really impactful programming with young people. And unfortunately, due to the budget shortfall, we were not able to fund at the same level that we did in previous bienniums, but it fortunately was still funded at 126 million. And so one of the things, even amidst the budget shortfall, we really hope to continue to build relationships with both funded projects and applicants, just to connect, provide resources, and make sure that we're connecting our parks to the communities that we're trying to reach. And then lastly, our hopes for the, our hopes for the future. I mentioned deepening those relationships with NCLI folks. We also hope to increase our impact with Everyone Outdoors program. And the PAIR team, we want them to be an integral part of how our agency does business and shape how we approach equity as an organization. And then one of the pieces of that is to develop a community engagement handbook to support field staff. And for those who would like to connect and learn more, here's our contact information. And that's all I have for my time, but I'm open. I welcome any questions if there is time left.
Thank you so much, Janette. We are going a little bit over, so I think that we will hold on questions for now, but please do take down this contact info if you'd like to reach out later with questions. And I really appreciate you coming online and sharing with us.
Thanks, everyone.
So for our third and final presentation in this block, we have Eddie Espinosa, the Executive Director of Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, who's here in person.
Thank you. How's that look? Good to go? Yep. How can I get my presenter screen? You should be able to just click. Yeah. Presenter screen. Oh, the presenter. That's a challenge. Oh, I don't think you can do it. All right. Do it live. Do it live. Okay. Do it live. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to the presenters who were before me. And I'm Eddie Espinosa. I represent, or I'm with the Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance. We're the statewide nonprofit that supports and builds mountain bike trails across the state. I'm going to share a little bit about who Evergreen is. I'll share a little bit about myself. And then we're going to zoom way in to talk about just mountain biking. As we went through the presentations before, I did notice that a lot of the concepts that I'm going to be talking about translate very directly with a lot of other outdoor pursuits. First, the Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, we're 9 chapters, going on 10 possibly in the next couple of months. We have close to 10,000 members across the state, and we work with all land managers from small towns to federal agencies to build and maintain world-class mountain bike trails. I am just a little over 1 year in my current role. Prior to this work, I was with the American Alpine Club for almost 10 years. Prior to that, I was working in outdoor retail and with the YMCA. So when it comes to equity and access and diversity and inclusion, there were many nonprofits way before those terms were even invented working on those things that I was fortunate enough to be adjacent to. So I've been thinking about this a lot over the course of my life. I was born in the Philippines and moved to Seattle when I was 3. I was born in a small logging town in the southernmost island. Literally, it was a company town for the logging operation that was there. So literally born into sawdust. So kind of gone full circle. And my parents were on their way to Chicago. They got stuck in Seattle. We ended up in Puyallup, Washington, where I spent my childhood. Went to school in Tacoma and now live in Seattle. Have tried I've tried to find many different reasons to move out, but I love the Northwest, and none of those reasons ever really kind of stuck. So, mountain biking started in the 70s. This is a relatively new sport. If you were born before the 80s, you have lived the entire life cycle for mountain biking, right? And so a sport in its infancy has had a lot of growing pains. This sport started with a bunch of guys on the slopes of Mount Tamalpais in Marin County who were taking department store bikes, starting at the top of a hill, pushing them down, and timing themselves going down these gravel roads. They were called the repack races because they would be going so fast, and the technology at the time, it wasn't very good. Their hubs would need to be repacked with grease. Sometimes they would catch on fire. In that short lifetime of mountain biking, what is it today? Upper left-hand corner is one of our educators, Kristen, who is leading a social ride at the Refuge Outdoor Festival at the Toll Carnation Campground. Next to that, that's a single track, backcountry single track ride up at Alpine Baldy, right outside of Skykomish. You have pictures of Duthie, you have kids racing in student leagues now. Bottom left-hand corner is the other bookend from a casual stroll around or casual ride around your neighborhood to, this is Red Bull Rampage. A lot of you folks are familiar with this event. The highest end bikes with the highest end riders riding down impossibly steep and crazy trails in Utah. And so in that short amount of time, the sport has grown exponentially. The challenges with accessibility, we'll start with, you need a bike to get out on the trails. Again, I'm going to present some bookends. On the far left, this is a Huffy. Many of us grew up on one. You can get one at a department store for $108. Because we live in America, because of capitalism, because of technology, because of our drive to go bigger, better, faster, stronger, what do you think a cost of a mid-level mountain bike is these days? $5,290. On the upper end, on the other bookmark, we now have e-bikes that are becoming more and more popular. That's a whole other separate conversation that I know we could talk about that all afternoon. But in terms of what's available on the market, what do we have now? Who wants to guess about what this e-bike will cost? $11,000. So right off the bat, we have a prohibitive cost factor for inclusion in this sport. And that goes across the board where, it does not matter where you're born, doesn't matter your ethnic background. This is a lot of money. The issue is we can still get a lot of fun. We can still be included in this sport for $108. And this is a narrative that's been kind of prevalent in this sport for a while, is that you need the biggest, best, fastest, lightest, strongest bike in order to even show up, which I think is one of the issues that you know, we can't influence or work with the marketplace, but we can influence what we do as an organization. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today is, as the nonprofit mountain bike organization in Washington, what can we do with our partners and internally to help with the issues of inclusivity and accessibility within our sport. Access to the trail is another issue. We recognize that if you don't have a car, mountain biking is problematic. Most of our trails that are the most desirable, the ones that are the most fun, the ones that have you know, our cornerstone trail systems, you got to drive to get to, unless you're fortunate enough to live in one of those communities where you can just ride your bike out the door. Most people don't live in those places. Additionally, if you live in a part of the state outside or unreasonably far from where these mountainous regions are, it takes a whole day to get there. This is a picture of trail map, or trail forks. You can see the concentration of where our mountain bike trails are across the state. You can see the big concentration of them in the I-90 corridor west of Snoqualmie Pass, within striking distance of Seattle, the 206, the 425. You know, and the work that this organization has done with all of its partners, the Northwest is on the world map for having some of the best mountain bike trails, period. Unfortunately, accessible only to the folks who have the ability to get to them. Another challenge is the trail, and MoveUnited did a really good presentation on how we can work with partners. Evergreen has done a lot of work here as well, developing, creating a system, creating policy and signage in many of the same ways MoveUnited did. This work has increased also exponentially over the last few years to make sure that folks, our adaptive athletes, can access these trails in a way that's safe, but also fun and challenging. So with these challenges, what are our responses? One thing that I want to do with the organization is manage the narrative. We'll let popular culture, we'll let the big industries, you know, if they want to focus on Red Bull Rampage style narrative and media, you know, they should. That's what makes money, that's what's exciting, that's what gets the clicks. But I also think that as an organization, we're compelled, or we have a responsibility to also represent all parts of what mountain biking means, and accessible trails and families and trails that you can ride your bike to from your house, and trails where you can ride that $108 mountain bike and not have an issue. You know, you can't ride that bike on a Red Bull or even on a black trail. If you ride, you know, it's a poor tool for more of our advanced trails in the state, admittedly, but you can have a lot of fun between here and there. And a lot of folks who ride bikes have no interest in doing that anyways. So how do we create an atmosphere or create a narrative where all riders are accepted equally, regardless of your socioeconomic class or whatever bike you can afford, right? And we're going to build trails for all riders. We've talked about this a lot in the last hour. You can see some of the challenges a regular trail might pose to an adaptive athlete on on a bowhead or an adaptive e-bike. Even simple things like making wood features a little bit wider to accommodate those adaptive e-bikes. Simple, easy fixes just to make these trails and features more accessible to everyone. And another thing that we'd like to do is build closer. Upper left-hand corner, that's a pump track in Quincy, Washington. Some of you might recognize Colonnade in the bottom left-hand corner, our newest pump track sitting under I-90 right near Seattle, or right in Seattle. And on the right is Chien, another new park that we partnered with Seattle City Parks and Friends of Chien to build right in Beacon Hill. I was going to try to tell the Chien story, but there's a video out there that I want to present that tells it in a much, much better way, and I think really captures the idea of what accessible trail building means. Do we have time to do that? Okay. Can we do it? Oh, yeah.
Green space on Beacon Hill in Seattle. It's a 33 to 43 acre forest, depending on who you ask. And so
Stand by. Whoa.